The rain came down in sheets over downtown Chicago, washing the streets in silver and smoke. Neon signs flickered over puddles, and the night smelled of gasoline and regret. It was past midnight when Luca Moretti stepped out of the black Escalade, his coat heavy with water, his jaw clenched against the cold. Behind him, the city pulsed like a wounded animal, alive, unpredictable, dangerous. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not tonight. He'd buried his father that morning, a man whose hands built an empire on blood and fear. And now, less than 12 hours later, Luca was walking straight into a deal his father had died trying to close. The streets had no mercy for the weak, and Luca had no choice but to prove he wasn't one of them. But fate had other plans. Across the street, beneath the flickering awning of a shuttered diner, a girl stood alone, soaked through, shivering, clutching a small suitcase. She looked impossibly out of place against the bruised skyline. Her hair, the color of honey left too long in sunlight, stuck to her cheeks. Her eyes, wide and uncertain, followed the passing cars as though searching for a way out. She didn't belong to this world. Not yet. Luca paused. Something about her, her stillness, maybe, or the quiet defiance in the way she lifted her chin, made him stop mid-step. He could hear his driver calling behind him, could see the men waiting in the alley ahead, but none of it mattered. He walked toward her. The girl startled when he approached, stepping back into the glow of a broken streetlight. I'm fine," she stammered before he could even speak, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "I don't need help." "Doesn't look like it," he said, his tone low, calm, the kind of voice people didn't argue with. "Where are you headed?" She hesitated. "Anywhere but here." Luca's gaze flicked to the old suitcase at her feet. The edges were frayed, the handle patched with duct tape. She couldn't have been older than 21, maybe 22, and there was a kind of raw honesty in her eyes, the kind that made men forget what they came for. "What's your name?" "Emma." She said it like a secret, as if the name itself could be stolen. "Emma what?" "Just Emma." He almost smiled. "All right, just Emma. You shouldn't be out here alone. I can handle myself." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence, betraying her lie. A flash of headlights cut across the street. Another black car, sleek and tinted, slowing as it passed. Luca's instinct sharpened. He knew that car. He'd seen it outside the cathedral earlier that morning. The men inside weren't the kind who made small talk. He stepped closer to Emma. "Do you know who those people are?" She shook her head, confused, water dripping from her lashes. "They're not here for you," he said quietly. "But they'll notice you if you stay in sight." Her pulse visibly quickened. "Who are they?" He looked at her, then back at the car, which had now stopped at the corner. The passenger window rolled down an inch. He could see the glint of a gun barrel inside. "Come with me," Luca said. "What?" "No, I don't even know you." "You will. Move." He grabbed her hand, firm but not rough, and pulled her toward the alley. She resisted at first, then felt the air shift, the tension, the threat, and followed without another word. The sound of footsteps splashing behind them confirmed his instinct. They were being followed. They cut through the alley and emerged behind a closed florist shop. Luca pushed open the back door with his shoulder and ushered her inside. The room smelled of old roses and damp cardboard. Emma leaned against the counter, trembling. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Someone who just saved your life," he said. "That doesn't tell me anything." He sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. "Luca." Her eyes narrowed. "Luca what?" He hesitated, then decided there was no point lying. "Moretti." She froze. "As in, Moretti family?" The way she said it, careful, frightened, told him she knew the name. Everyone in Chicago did. He gave a small nod. "You can leave if you want, but if you walk back out there, you won't make it half a block." Her breathing quickened, eyes darting toward the rain-blurred window. "Why would they want me?" "They don't," he said softly. "They want me. You were just in the wrong place." Something in her expression shifted, a flicker of pity, or maybe curiosity. "And what are you, Luca Moretti? A savior or a sinner?" He looked at her for a long moment, the corners of his mouth tightening. "Depends on who's asking." The storm outside deepened, thunder rolling over the city like a warning. For a moment, the world felt smaller, as if everything beyond that room had disappeared. The hum of the rain, the rhythm of their breathing, it all merged into a fragile silence. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. "I should go." "Where?" he asked. She didn't answer. He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded piece of paper, a business card, and slid it across the counter. "If you need a place to stay, call this number. Ask for Nico. He owes me." She stared at the card, hesitant to touch it. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Stay off the main streets tonight. And if anyone asks about me, you don't know a thing." The door creaked open, letting in a gust of cold rain. "Luca!" Her voice stopped him. He turned, his hand still on the handle. "Why did you help me?" His answer was almost a whisper. "Because someone once helped me when they shouldn't have." He stepped out into the storm and was gone. Emma stayed where she was, staring at the card on the counter. The ink had started to blur from the humidity. The name Nico almost unreadable. She picked it up anyway, her fingers shaking. Outside, the sirens began, distant at first, then closer. She went to the window and saw the black car again, parked under the streetlight, its engine idling. Two men stood beside it, smoking, scanning the alleys. One of them lifted his phone to his ear and spoke a name. Luca Moretti. And then, softly, another name. Emma. Her stomach dropped. The door behind her swung open without warning. She spun around, clutching the suitcase, heart hammering. A figure stepped inside, tall, soaked, and furious. It wasn't Luca. It was the man from the car. "Evening, sweetheart," he said, a cruel smile cutting across his face. "You've got something of ours." Emma backed away until her shoulder hit the cold metal sink. "I don't know what you're talking about." He tilted his head. "Oh, I think you do. That little bag you're guarding so tight. You picked the wrong alley to get lost in." Her fingers tightened around the handle. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Before the man could take another step, a single gunshot shattered the silence. The man fell backward, the smile still frozen on his lips. Emma screamed. Luca stood in the doorway, his pistol still smoking, rain dripping from his hair. His expression was unreadable, a storm behind ice. He looked at her, then at the body, then back at her again. "I told you to stay off the streets," he said quietly. Emma's voice trembled. You killed him. I saved you." Again, he holstered the weapon and stepped closer. "Now you're coming with me. You don't get a choice anymore." And though every instinct told her to run, she didn't. Something in his eyes, something dark, haunted, almost broken, held her there. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the blood into the gutters, carrying their names into the night. The promise had been made, and in that moment, neither of them knew just how much it would cost. The city never really slept, not even after the rain. By morning, Chicago looked clean again, the streets glistening, the air crisp with the kind of chill that cuts straight through your lungs. But inside Luca Moretti's penthouse overlooking the river, the storm hadn't passed. It had only changed form. Emma woke in a bed that wasn't hers. The sheets were soft, too soft. The room smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cologne. For a few long seconds, she didn't remember where she was, until her eyes found the silhouette by the window. Luca, still in the same black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, watching the city with the stillness of someone who'd been awake all night. She sat up, clutching the edge of the blanket. "How long have I been here?" He didn't look at her. "A few hours." "Why am I here?" "Because it wasn't safe to leave you there." Emma's voice was small, uncertain. "And now, is it safe to be here?" That made him glance over his shoulder. His eyes, gray, cold, almost silver in the daylight, softened for just a moment before hardening again. Safer than anywhere else in this city. She wasn't sure she believed him, but she also wasn't sure she had anywhere else to go. The suitcase, her entire life packed into one faded leather case, sat at the foot of the bed. She noticed a faint smear of dried mud on its corner and, underneath it, a tear she hadn't seen before. Luca followed her gaze. "What's in the bag?" "Clothes," she said quickly. "Books. Nothing that matters." He raised an eyebrow. People don't kill for books. Her throat tightened. She looked down. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe. The silence stretched between them, taut and fragile. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere in the distance. Emma could feel his eyes on her. Not hungry, not cruel, but searching, measuring. She stood, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. You shouldn't have killed that man last night. He was going to hurt you. That doesn't make it right. His jaw flexed. In my world it does. I don't want to be in your world, she said, almost pleading. Then why were you in that alley? She froze. He didn't mean it as an accusation, but the question cut deep anyway. She hadn't told him. She hadn't told anyone. I was running, she whispered. From who? A pause. Her fingers tightened around the blanket's edge. Does it matter? It does if they come looking for you. Emma's eyes lifted to his. For a second, something inside her wavered, the instinct to trust, or maybe the desperate need to be believed. From someone who said he loved me, she said finally. Luca looked away, his expression unreadable. And now he's looking for you. Maybe. He nodded once, as if confirming something only he understood. You can stay here until we figure out who those men were last night. After that, you disappear. Clean. Quiet. I can't just disappear. You already have, he said quietly. The words hit harder than he meant them to. She turned toward the window. Her reflection ghosted over the skyline. For the first time since she'd met him, she saw the faint scar on his jaw, the faint bruise beneath his collarbone, proof that even monsters bleed. Downstairs, a buzz echoed through the intercom. Luca pressed a button. Yeah, a voice came through, low, clipped, Italian accented. It's Nico. We've got a problem. Emma flinched at the name. Luca's expression shifted. Stay here, he told her, already moving for the door. But when the elevator doors closed behind him, she didn't stay. The penthouse felt too quiet, too big, like a cage lined with marble and glass. Emma moved through the rooms in bare feet, drawn by something she couldn't name. Everything about the place screamed power. The heavy furniture, the scent of whiskey, the faint hum of a security system she didn't understand. On the desk near the window, she saw a photo, framed in black wood, face down. She hesitated, then turned it over. A young boy, maybe 8 or 9, sitting on his father's shoulders. Both smiling, both looking straight into the camera. The man was unmistakably Luca's father, the late Angelo Moretti. The man half of Chicago had feared, and the other half had owed. But the boy looked happy, untouched by all of it. She set the frame down gently, feeling something twist inside her. Then her eyes caught something else, a thin folder, half buried under papers. Her name was on it, Emma Carter. Her breath caught. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a photo of her leaving the train station 3 nights ago, another at a diner in South Bend, one more at the bus depot in Gary, Indiana. Dates, times, notes in neat handwriting. Someone had been following her long before last night. The elevator doors opened behind her. She jumped, dropping the folder. Luca stood there, his face unreadable. You were supposed to stay in the room. What is this? She demanded, stepping toward him, holding up the file. How do you have these? He looked at the folder, then at her. Because I've been looking for you. The air between them changed, thick, electric. What? She whispered. I didn't know who you were when I found you in that alley, he said. But my father did. Before he died, he gave me one last order, to find a girl named Emma Carter and keep her alive. Her voice broke. Why? He took a slow breath. He never told me. Only that if you die, everything he built dies with you. Emma stared at him, heart pounding, disbelief warring with fear. That doesn't make sense. I didn't even know your father. Luca's gaze darkened. Then we're both missing a piece of the truth. He stepped closer, close enough for her to feel the warmth of him, the quiet control under the surface. But until we find it, you don't go anywhere without me. Understand? She wanted to argue, to scream, to tell him he had no right to decide her fate. But something in his voice, in the shadow behind his eyes, silenced her. Do you trust me, Emma? He asked softly. She swallowed. No. He almost smiled. Not because it amused him, but because it was honest. Good. That means you'll survive. He turned away, but she stopped him with a whisper. And if I run again? He looked back over his shoulder. Then I'll find you. Every time. Their eyes held, her fear against his certainty, her fragility against his restraint. And for a heartbeat, the city outside seemed to still. She didn't know yet that what bound them wasn't just protection. It was a promise sealed long before either of them had a choice. And somewhere in the distance, in a dark office lined with gold and glass, a man watched their every move on a grainy security feed. A small smile tugged at his lips as he whispered to himself. So she found him. The screen flickered. The hunt had only begun. The first snow of the season fell quietly over Chicago, layering the city in a thin, deceptive peace. The streets glittered under the morning sun, but inside the Moretti penthouse, the air was heavy, thick with unspoken truths, and something neither of them dared to name. It had been 3 days since the alley, 3 days since Emma had discovered the file with her name on it. In those 3 days, she hadn't left Luca's side, not because she trusted him, but because, deep down, she knew he was right. Whoever had been following her wasn't finished. Luca watched her from the kitchen doorway that morning as she stood by the window, wrapped in one of his sweaters. It hung loosely over her frame, sleeves too long, the collar slipping from her shoulder. She looked small, almost fragile, but her eyes, when she turned to meet his, were steady. "I'm not going to hide forever," she said quietly. Luca set his coffee down. "You'll hide until I say it's safe." "And when will that be?" "When I know who wants you dead." Her laugh was soft, bitter. "You sound like my father." That made him pause. "Your father?" She hesitated, then turned back to the window. He was a cop. Small-town sheriff in Indiana. Everyone loved him, until he didn't come home one night. "What happened?" "They said it was a robbery gone wrong." Her voice faltered. "But I heard things after. People whispering that he'd found something he wasn't supposed to. Files. Names. A shipment that went missing." She finally looked at him, her eyes shining with something raw. "He was investigating your family, wasn't he?" The question hit like a blade, too sharp, too close to the truth. Luca didn't answer. He didn't have to. Emma's lips parted, realization washing over her. "That's why your father wanted to protect me. He felt guilty." Luca's jaw clenched. "He wasn't a saint, Emma. He did what he had to." "So did my father," she said, her voice breaking. "And he died for it." The silence that followed was unbearable. Luca turned away first, his hands tightening into fists. "He told me to keep you safe," he said finally. "That's all I know." Emma shook her head, stepping closer. "You expect me to believe that? You've been watching me for weeks. You must have seen something, heard something." Luca looked at her then, his voice low, dangerous. "You think I like this? That I enjoy dragging an innocent girl into the middle of a war she doesn't understand?" Her heart raced, but she didn't back down. "Then tell me what you're hiding." He stared at her for a long, unbroken moment. Something inside him shifted, a quiet surrender. He walked to the bookshelf, reached behind a row of old ledgers, and pulled out a sealed envelope. The paper was yellowed, the edges worn. Her name was written across it in precise handwriting. "Your father left this," he said, placing it on the table. "My father kept it locked away." Emma stared at it like it might burn her. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, but Luca stopped her. "Once you open it, there's no going back." "I already can't go back," she whispered. She tore the seal. Inside were 2 things, a single photograph and a folded note. The photo was old, grainy, taken in a dim warehouse. Her father stood beside another man, both of them young, proud, smiling. The other man was Angelo Moretti. Her breath hitched. The note was short, written in her father's hand. "If something happens to me, find Luca. He's not like his father. Tell him about the ledger. It's the only proof left." She looked up, her voice trembling. "What ledger?" Luca's eyes darkened. "The one that got your father killed." He crossed the room, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small metal key, worn and rusted. "This was in my father's safe. It matches the storage unit he kept outside Joliet. I never had a reason to open it before. And now I think your father wanted us both to find it." Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. "You're saying they were working together?" "Maybe once," Luca said, "before everything went to hell." She sank into a chair, her mind reeling. The weight of the revelation settled over her like fresh snow, quiet, suffocating, cold. "Emma." She looked up. Luca's voice softened. "If we go after that ledger, it won't just be the cops or the press. Every man who ever worked for my father will come for us. You understand that?" She nodded slowly. "I do." "Then you stay close to me. Always." Her gaze met his, steady, unflinching. "I already have." For a moment, the room felt smaller. The distance between them evaporated. Luca's breath brushed her cheek. Her heartbeat filled the silence. Neither of them moved. Neither dared to. Then, as if waking from a spell, he stepped back. "Get ready. We leave at nightfall." The drive to Joliet was long and silent. The snow had turned to slush, the road slick under the fading light. Emma sat in the passenger seat, her fingers tracing invisible shapes on the window. Luca's focus never wavered, hand steady on the wheel, eyes scanning every passing car. When they reached the outskirts of the city, the skyline gave way to warehouses and old rail lines. The storage facility was deserted, the kind of place where no one asked questions. Luca killed the engine. "Stay here." "Not a chance," she said. He almost smiled. Stubborn, determined. He gave her a look, half warning, half admiration, then opened the door. Inside, the air smelled of oil and dust. Luca found the right unit, slid the key into the lock, and turned it. The door groaned open. At first, there was nothing, just stacks of crates and a thin layer of dust. Then Emma spotted it. A small safe bolted to the concrete floor. Luca crouched down, dialed in a code, and opened it. Inside was a leather-bound ledger, old but intact, pages yellowed with age. Emma knelt beside him, heart racing. "What is it?" He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning quickly. Transactions, shipments, names. He stopped on one line, his brow furrowing. "Emma, this isn't just about the Morettas." "What do you mean?" He turned the book toward her. In neat, looping handwriting, one of the names listed stood out among the rest. Sheriff Thomas Carter. Her father. Emma's breath caught. "No," she whispered. "That can't be." Luca looked at her, his voice quiet, careful. "Your father wasn't investigating us. He was working for us." She stumbled backward, shaking her head. "You're lying." "I wish I was." She stared at the ledger, tears blurring the ink. Everything she'd believed, the hero she'd mourned, the man she'd run from, fractured in an instant. Luca stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Whatever he did, whatever my father made him do, it doesn't change who you are." But she wasn't listening. She couldn't. Her chest ached. Her vision swam. The world tilted under her feet. And in that dizzying moment of grief, she didn't notice the shadow moving outside the doorway. A man watching them, phone in hand. He spoke into it, voice hushed and urgent. They found it. Both of them. Then he smiled. "Tell the boss. It's time." The wind screamed through the empty lot as they sped away from Joliet. Snow fell again, thick, relentless, turning the highway into a blur of white lines and broken memories. Emma sat in silence, her hands trembling in her lap, the ledger clutched to her chest like a weapon she didn't know how to use. Luca drove fast, jaw locked, eyes dark with something between fury and guilt. Every few minutes, he glanced at her, but she never looked back. The distance between them, even inside that small car, felt infinite. When they reached the city, dawn was breaking. The skyline rose before them, cold and metallic, reflecting the pale fire of the sunrise. Luca pulled into the underground garage beneath his penthouse, killed the engine, and rested his head against the steering wheel. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Emma broke the silence. Her voice was hoarse, stripped of emotion. "How long have you known?" He lifted his head. "I didn't." "Don't lie to me." "I swear to you, Emma." "Stop." She turned to him, her eyes sharp, wet with fury. "All this time, You kept me here, watched me, protected me. And you didn't know my father worked for yours? Luca exhaled slowly. He wasn't on any payroll. If my father trusted him, it was off the books. That ledger, whatever's in it, he buried it for a reason. Her fingers tightened around the leather cover. Maybe he wanted the truth to come out. Then he should have lived long enough to tell it himself. The words slipped out before he could stop them. She flinched like he'd struck her. Emma, don't. She pushed the car door open and stepped into the cold. The snow hit her face like needles. I don't want your protection anymore. Then what do you want? He called after her. She turned, eyes blazing. The truth, even if it destroys both of us. And then she walked away. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt longer than usual. Luca followed her in silence, tension thick in the air. When the doors opened, Emma went straight for the window, staring out over the city she no longer trusted. He stood behind her, hands in his pockets, trying to find the right words. Emma, he began quietly. I don't know what your father was part of, but if that ledger goes public, it won't just be my family that burns. It'll be yours too. She turned, her expression hard. Maybe that's the only way to end this. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. Her voice trembled, but her conviction didn't. I've lived my whole life believing my father was a good man. If that was a lie, then I want to face it. I won't hide behind secrets anymore. Luca stepped closer. You're not ready for what that means. Then teach me. The words hung between them, heavy, defiant, desperate. He reached out, his hand hesitating midair before resting lightly against her cheek. She didn't pull away. Her skin was cold. His thumb traced the edge of her jaw, slow, reverent, like he was memorizing her. You shouldn't look at me like that, he said, voice rough. Why not? Because I'm not the man you think I am. She looked up at him, eyes shining with defiance and something else, something fragile breaking. Then who are you, Luca? He leaned closer until their foreheads almost touched. The man who's going to lose you if you keep asking questions. But it was too late for warnings, too late for restraint. Her breath trembled against his. Then lose me. And then she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't safe. It was raw. Two people trying to silence the noise of everything falling apart. His hands found her waist, hers tangled in his hair, the ledger forgotten on the floor. The world outside disappeared, replaced by the sound of two hearts breaking in perfect rhythm. When they finally pulled apart, the city was still, the snow falling soft against the glass. Luca looked at her, chest rising, eyes filled with something like regret. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I've done, she whispered. I've chosen to believe you. But before he could answer, the glass behind her shattered. A single gunshot echoed through the penthouse. Luca tackled her to the ground, shards raining over them. The bullet buried itself in the wall where she'd been standing seconds before. Outside the broken window, a black SUV screeched away into the storm. Are you hurt? He demanded. She shook her head, eyes wide, breath coming fast. Luca reached for his gun. Stay here. No, she cried, grabbing his arm. You'll get killed. He looked at her, at the fear, the stubbornness, the impossible pull between them, and then pressed his lips to her forehead. If I don't come back, burn that ledger. Promise me. Before she could speak, he was gone. The warehouse near the river was silent when Luca arrived, his tires cutting tracks through the slush. He moved like a shadow, the cold biting into his skin. He knew exactly who he'd find waiting for him. Nico stood near the far wall, hands in his pockets, cigarette glowing between his fingers. You tried to have her killed, Luca said. Nico didn't deny it. You were never supposed to find the ledger. The old man's orders died with him. He told me to protect her. He told me to protect the family, Nico said, voice hard. If that girl leaks what's inside those pages, the feds will tear everything apart. Every deal, every name, including yours. Luca's jaw tightened. Then let it burn. Nico laughed bitterly. You sound just like him. I'm nothing like him. Really? Nico flicked his cigarette aside, his tone turning cold. Then why are you still doing what he told you? The question hit deeper than Luca expected. You don't understand, Luca said. She's not part of this. She is now. And before Luca could reach for his gun, Nico drew his. The shot rang out like thunder. Pain exploded through Luca's shoulder. He staggered, caught himself against a crate, and fired back. Nico dropped instantly, the echo of the gunfire dying into silence. Luca's hand pressed against the wound. Blood seeped through his fingers. He looked down at Nico's body, eyes clouded with something between rage and sorrow. I warned you, he whispered. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. He knew they weren't for him yet, but they would be soon. He grabbed Nico's phone, still lit on the floor. A text was open, half-typed, unsent. Target secured. Deliver her to the boss. The boss. Luca froze. There was only one man Nico could mean. Someone powerful enough to command both fear and silence. Someone whose name had haunted Luca's family for years. He stared at the message, his pulse quickening. Vincent Moretti. His uncle. Back at the penthouse, Emma sat curled on the couch, the fire flickering low. Her hands were shaking as she flipped through the ledger again, scanning every name, every deal. And then, at the very end of the book, she saw it. A line written in newer ink, fresher than the rest. Payment received, V. Moretti. Custody of Emma Carter confirmed. Her breath caught. Custody. She flipped the page, and a folded piece of paper fell out. It was a birth certificate. Her name. Her birthday. And beneath father. A name she'd never seen before. Vincent Moretti. The world tilted. Her vision blurred. Outside, the elevator chimed. Luca, she called, voice trembling. But the man who stepped out of the elevator wasn't Luca. He was older, tall, elegant, dressed in a charcoal suit. His smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes. Hello, my dear, he said softly. You've grown beautifully. Emma froze. Who are you? He took a slow step forward. You already know. Her throat went dry. No. Yes, Vincent said gently. You're my daughter. The room went silent except for the crackle of the fire and the faint sound of snow against the glass. And as Emma backed away, trembling, the ledger still clutched to her chest, Vincent smiled. Your father kept you hidden from me for years, he said. But now, my darling, it's time to come home. The wind howled against the shattered windows of the penthouse, scattering snow across the marble floor. Emma stood frozen, the fire's glow trembling against her pale skin. The ledger clutched to her chest, like a heartbeat she couldn't quiet. Vincent Moretti moved with the calm precision of a man who owned every inch of the silence around him. His voice, when he spoke, was velvet over steel. I waited 22 years for this moment, he said softly, to look into your eyes and see her again. Emma's voice cracked. Who? Your mother, he said, smiling faintly. Claire, the only woman I ever loved, and the only one who ever betrayed me. Emma's knees weakened. You're lying. Vincent's smile didn't falter. You have her mouth, her stubbornness. You even tilt your head like she did when she was scared but pretending not to be. Stop, Emma whispered. You don't know her. Oh, I knew her better than anyone. He stepped closer, his shoes silent on the marble. She was mine long before she ran off with that sheriff, before she tried to hide you. Emma shook her head, trembling. My father was a good man, Vincent interrupted gently. He loved you as his own. But he stole you from me, Emma. He took my blood, my legacy, and tried to bury it under his badge and his righteousness. The words sliced through her, sharp and cold. Her chest ached. She wanted to deny it, to scream that it wasn't true. But deep inside, something in her already knew. The dates, the files, the way her father had always avoided questions about her birth certificate. The missing years her mother never explained. Her voice came out as a whisper. Why tell me now? Because, Vincent said, his smile turning thin. You have something that belongs to me. His eyes flicked to the ledger in her hands. Emma's grip tightened. You'll never get it. Vincent sighed, almost tenderly. You inherited your mother's courage. I'll give you that. He reached into his coat pocket and drew a small silver pistol, polished and elegant. But courage alone won't keep you alive. The sound of the elevator broke the moment, metal grinding, cables humming. Vincent turned just as the door slid open. Luca stepped out, blood soaking through his shoulder, gun in hand, eyes burning with fury. "Get away from her," he said, voice low, trembling with restrained violence. Vincent smiled faintly. "Ah, my nephew. Always so dramatic." "You're done, Vincent." Luca growled. "The ledger's finished. The feds have it." That was a lie. Emma realized it instantly, but it made Vincent's smile flicker. "Do you really think I built this empire on something as fragile as paper?" he said softly. "You don't understand, Luca. That book isn't a record. It's a key. Without it, everything I own turns to dust." Luca took another step forward, gun leveled. "Then let it burn." Vincent's eyes darkened. "I see. You've fallen for her." He turned his gaze to Emma, studying her like a scientist examining a fragile specimen. "You know, my boy," he said, "you're making the same mistake your father did, falling in love with what you were ordered to protect." Luca's voice broke. "She's nothing like you." Vincent tilted his head. "No, she's worse, because she makes you weak." The gunfire came fast, 2 shots, echoing through the penthouse. Vincent fired first. Luca fired second. For a moment, the world froze. Then Vincent staggered backward, blood spreading across his chest. He looked almost disappointed as he fell to his knees. "You could have ruled beside me," he rasped. "Together, we could have rebuilt everything." Luca stood over him, gun still raised, breathing hard. "I'm done rebuilding your ghosts." Vincent's eyes shifted one last time to Emma, and for the briefest second, the cruelty faded, replaced by something human. "Claire's eyes," he whispered, "always watching." Then his body went still. The silence that followed was unbearable. Luca dropped the gun, his hand pressed to his wound. Blood dripped down his arm, dark against his skin. Emma ran to him, catching him as he stumbled. "Hey," she whispered, voice shaking. "Hey, stay with me." He tried to smile. "You always tell me that." "Because you never listen." She pressed her hands over his wound, her tears mixing with his blood. "You're not dying on me. Not after everything." His hand found hers, fingers curling weakly. "Emma, listen to me." "No." "Listen," he said, breath ragged. "That ledger, it's yours now. Whatever truth it holds, don't let anyone twist it. Not even me." She shook her head. "Stop talking like that." But he kept going, his voice softer now. "Promise me one thing. Anything. Don't become like us." Her heart broke open. "You're not like them." He managed a faint smile. "I am. But you could be something else." She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. "Then take me with you." He exhaled, a tremor of pain, or maybe peace, passing through him. "You already have." And then his eyes closed. Emma held him until the sirens grew louder, until blue light spilled across the snow through the broken window. She didn't move when the agents burst in, shouting orders, guns raised. She didn't flinch when they dragged Vincent's body away, or when they called for medics. She just sat there, her hand still wrapped around Luca's. 3 months later, spring came slow to Chicago. The air smelled of rain and thawing earth. The river ran thick and gray beneath the bridges, carrying the remnants of winter out to the lake. Emma stood on the steps of the federal courthouse, the wind tugging at her coat. Reporters swarmed behind the barricades, shouting questions about the Moretti trial. She ignored them all. In her hand was the ledger, what remained of it. Half the pages were gone, burned in the fire that had consumed Luca's penthouse that night. What she'd given the feds was enough to dismantle the Moretti empire. What she'd kept was something else entirely. A single page. On it, one line written in her father's hand. "The truth costs everything. Pay it anyway." She looked out over the city, the same skyline that once held her captive, and for the first time, she didn't feel fear. Just quiet. A voice broke through the hum of traffic behind her. "You look like hell." Her heart stopped. She turned. Luca stood there, alive, thinner, his arm still in a sling. The scar along his neck was new, but his eyes were the same. She couldn't speak. He smiled faintly. "You didn't burn it, did you?" "No," she whispered. "I couldn't." He stepped closer. Then you still don't listen. She laughed through the tears that spilled down her cheeks. You were supposed to be dead. I was. For a while. He looked at her, something soft flickering behind the exhaustion. Then I remembered you don't know how to say goodbye. She stared at him, trembling. What happens now? He glanced out at the city. Now, we disappear. Start over. Somewhere quiet. Together. He met her gaze. If you'll have me. Emma took a slow step forward until the space between them disappeared. Her fingers brushed the edge of his coat, found his heartbeat beneath the fabric. I already do, she said. And for the first time since that night in the rain, Luca Moretti smiled, small, real, unguarded. The snow had melted. The city was awake again. And somewhere between sin and salvation, two broken hearts found the courage to build something new. Not perfect, not clean, but real. As they walked away, the ledger page slipped from Emma's hand, caught by the wind, drifting over the Chicago River before vanishing into the water below. The past was gone. The promise, however, remained. Forever,